Imagine it's a hot summer day. You're playing outside with your friends, or others are just enjoying time with their family. You decide to take a break and go get a bite to eat at McDonald's with your friends, when all of a sudden a man with evil intentions by the name of James Huberty decides to come in and shatter everything. This is the story of the San Ysidro McDonalds Massacre. Before I get any further into this video, I'm Courtney Elise, aka Court Crimes TV, and welcome to my channel. If you happen to enjoy, please like, subscribe, and comment. Let's get into the video. James Oliver Huberty was born in Canton, Ohio on October 11th, 1942 to parents Earl Vincent and Iselle Huberty. James, during his early years of life, was brought up in a very religious household. Growing up, James's family ironically went to church every single Sunday, never missed a beat. At the tender age of 3 years old, James would unfortunately catch the disease polio. Polio is a highly infectious disease that is spread person to person, typically through contaminated water. It can attack the nervous system and lead to paralysis. It commonly affects children under the age of 5. James would eventually recover from this disease, but it left him with permanent walking difficulties. In the 1950s, his father, Earl, bought a farm in the Pennsylvania Amish country with the intent to move his family there. But his mother, Iselle, decided to not go. She refused to go, so she abandoned her family to pursue her career as a sidewalk preacher. This abandonment from his mother would lead to James being severely withdrawn from his peers. A minister would later claim that James slammed God for taking his mother away from him. In 1962, James enrolled at Jesuit Community College, where he ironically earned a bachelor's degree in sociology. He would later get his license for embalming at Pittsburgh Mortuary Institute of Science. So you could kind of say, though withdrawn, very withdrawn, James was sort of a determined person. You know, he wanted to do better, so to say. While enrolled in the Pittsburgh Institute of Mortuary Science, he would meet his wife, Edna. The two would end up getting married in 1965, and they would end up having 2 daughters named Zelia and Cassandra. Now married with 2 little girls, James moved his family to Massacre, Ohio. Sorry if I mispronounced that name. In this story, in this video, you're gonna notice that James moved his family around a lot. While living there, James found a job at Don Williams' funeral home as an undertaker. But unfortunately, James would not have this job for long. You see, James had a severe temper problem. He had extreme anger issues, and due to him having these severe anger issues and mental breakdowns, James would get fired, and he would get fired a lot. In 1971, James would pack up his family and he would move them back to his hometown of Canton, Ohio, due to his house being destroyed from a house fire. In Canton, James found a job as a welder at Union Metal Inc. Like I told you, James moved his family around a lot. And I think he did this to escape away from the problems and difficulties he was facing in life. But unfortunately, life in Canton, his hometown, wasn't so sweet either. You see, James and Edna had a very volatile marriage. Domestic violence was very common in the Huberty household. The Hubertys were a very isolated family, but they weren't so shy to expose their violent behaviors towards others. These parents were known to instruct their daughters to attack other children in the neighborhood. Edna also attacked and threatened one of the kids' mothers at a birthday party with a 9mm. Edna was then promptly arrested, but the wasn't confiscated, which is dumb. James, on another occasion, threatened to and kill his neighbor's dog because it defecated on his yard. There's also another case of animal because James actually shot and killed his own dog because his neighbor complained of it ruining his vehicle. Yeah, so this family was crazy, and the poor little girls didn't stand a chance because their mom and dad was encouraging them to fight. As you can imagine, the police knew this family very well. The abuse within the Huberty household would get worse. So much so that Edna filed a complaint against James with the Canton Department of Children and Family Services because James, I guess, beat her so bad that he ended up messing up Edna's jaw. It's said that to calm James's anger, Edna would read tarot cards. She would pretend to read tarot cards and say that James's future was bright because, you know, James was so, you know, insecure, and he was so angry all the time. Like I said in the beginning, he had severe anger issues. And to calm and suppress his anger, Edna would pretend to read these tarot cards, and this would brighten up James's day. You know, he would kind of cool off with the anger. In 1983, due to a motorcycle accident, James would end up having an uncontrollable twitch. And this twitch would lead to him, unfortunately, having to resign from his job as a welder. Due to James having to resign from his job as a welder, James grew increasingly angry and more paranoid. One day, while sitting in his living room, James had a revolver and put it to his temple. And I guess you can say, fortunately, Edna walked in just in time and pulled the gun away from him. At this point in his life, he's angry and he's paranoid, and his mental health is seriously declining. James started to truly believe that bankers were manipulating the Federal Reserve System and bankrupting the country. So much so that he would end up buying more, a whole bunch of non-perishable food items, and moving his family from out of the United States into Tijuana, Mexico. But as usual, James and his family would not stay in Mexico for long. He would end up moving his family out of Tijuana back into the United States, where the government is so corrupt, back into the United States, into San Ysidro, California. While living in San Ysidro, California, James would find a job as a security guard, but once again he was let go, and this was 2 weeks before everything would occur. On July 17th of 1984, James would take it upon himself and call a mental health center. While on the phone with one of the receptionists during intake, the receptionist would make a crucial mistake. She would misspell his name as Huberty instead of Huberty, and since there was no sense of urgency in James's voice, they actually said he sounded polite, they didn't call him back. James would wait for hours, but no calls were returned. As you can imagine, with James's mental health and his severe anger issues, this really upset James. July 18th of 1984, just a few hours before the massacre, James took his family to the San Diego Zoo. They would then, ironically, go eat together as a family at McDonald's. Not the same McDonald's that James would later target. Once they arrived back home, James armed himself with weapons and left. But before he would leave, Edna would question him about where he was going. And James would turn around and tell her, society had their chance. Now I'm going hunt humans. Edna was questioned as to why she didn't alert police about James's strange behavior and weird comment, but she had no explanation. It was also reported that a witness saw James with his arsenal of weapons and reported him to the police, but dispatch got the address wrong. So this is the third time within 24 hours that somebody got it wrong. The receptionist at the mental health institution got his name wrong and never called him back, which already got him steaming. His wife sees him with all these and is even told by him that he's going to hunt humans, and she doesn't call police. And then a witness sees him walking with this arsenal of weapons, calls the police, but the dispatch get the address wrong. 3 times this could have been prevented, but somebody messed it up. James would continue on and would start to choose which location was the best. He first had his sights set on a supermarket and then a post office. But finally and unfortunately, he zoned in on a McDonald's. At 3:40 p.m., James walked into the McDonald's with all his strapped to him and ordered everyone on the ground. As soon as they were on the ground, he opened fire and he shot everyone in his sight. He targeted everyone. He targeted people riding their bikes outside. He targeted children. He targeted elderlies. He targeted babies. Anyone that was in his sight, he And let me just tell you this, the pictures of the scene is so graphic and so sad. I obviously cannot put them in this video, but if you go on Reddit, you will see it's just sad. Okay, it's extremely sad. Like, he had no heart, no remorse, nothing. At 4:07 p.m., Officer Miguel Rosario arrived at the scene. For some reason, this officer thought this was all an accident until James walked outside with an Uzi and started spraying, shattering his windshield and his patrol lights. Officer Rosario refused to return fire because he thought that James had other accomplices. For more help and for more backup, Officer Rosario would call in a code 10 to bring in the SWAT. Once SWAT arrived, James would go back inside the McDonald's, and this is when a standoff would ensue. Police shut down the major highways and they shut down the Tijuana border for the entire day. A sniper would position himself at a post office south of the McDonald's so that way he can get a good view of James. At 5:16 p.m., a sniper would fire one single through the restaurant, hitting James through the heart, killing him instantly. The whole tragedy lasted for 77 minutes. 21 people were killed and 19 people were injured. His victims ranged from 8 months old to 75 years old. Due to the number of victims, funeral homes had to use the San Ysidro Civic Center to hold all the wakes. As for the official McDonald's site where everything occurred, it was torn down on September 26th of 1984. They would then turn the property into an education center as a part of the Southwestern Community College with a memorial of all the deceased in the front. Also, since Officer Rosario was so easily out by James, the police would increase its special unit training. The officers were given more high-powered firearms just in case something like this happened in the future. As you can imagine, the lawsuits came flooding in. The victims' families would attempt to sue McDonald's, but their cases were appealed, which honestly, I don't understand why they would try to sue McDonald's, because McDonald's wasn't responsible for James's actions. McDonald's was just a restaurant, and unfortunately, James targeted that McDonald's. But I understand they were grieving and they wanted some type of closure, and McDonald's was it. Also, Edna, with all the audacity, tried to sue McDonald's and James's former place of employment, Babcock and Wilcox, that's where he worked as a welder, but was unsuccessful. Edna claimed that James was triggered by the mixture of the chemicals in the McDonald's food and the chemicals he was around as a welder. She claimed that the chemicals in the McDonald's food and the poisonous metals that were found in his body was the trigger that caused his delusions and his rage. No, your husband was just crazy. An autopsy would show that there were dangerously high amounts of metal in his system, but this in no way caused him to go crazy and just and kill people at McDonald's. This is my opinion of the story. James was crazy. I mean, if you go on Reddit and you see the crime scene photos, the saddest picture that really got to me was the picture of that baby, the 8-month-old. Like, James was evil. For him to and kill that baby, it's so sad to see. He kids and killed kids on their bike. He taunted the victims before he killed them. He called them racial slurs. James was evil. I can't put the pictures in this video, but if you look them up on Reddit, he was just the devil himself. For him to go out and kill people because he was facing mental problems, I don't understand why people do this. You know, if you're that angry with the world, you know, end yourself. I don't condone that, but I mean, don't take it out on innocent people. If you're that angry, take it out on yourself. You know, other people should not have to suffer for what you're going through mentally. Rest in peace to all of the victims at the McDonald's. I hope their family has since found closure. It's been like 40 years since all this occurred, but rest in peace to all the victims.